Hello and welcome to the Brian Hornback Podcast. This is episode number 8, if you're keeping count. Brian Hornback Podcast is heard on Anchor FM, Spotify, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and Apple. So we want to thank you for listening. Again, as a reminder, this started 16 years ago as a webblog, brianhornback.com. You can still find us there, brianhornback.com, brianhornback.com. And we're putting up content every day at brianhornback.com. Let's get right to what's going on in the world today. Last Tuesday, the Tennessee House Republican Caucus, those are the members of the Republican Party that are in the Tennessee State House of Representatives. They met last Tuesday in caucus session to pick their leaders. There was no contest for Speaker. Speaker Cameron Sexton was unopposed. Majority Leader William Lamberth was unopposed. The only contest for leadership was for Caucus Chairman. Representative Robin Smith out of Chattanooga challenged Jeremy Faison for Caucus Chairman. Really, what the major issue there is, because if you'll remember, there's 73 members of the 99 that are Republicans, and all 73. There were 73 Republican seats of the 99 last session, and when they start again in January, there's 73 Republicans that are going to be sitting in 73 of the 99 seats in the Tennessee House of Representatives. But what the issue is that after the members paid their dues in December, from January until September, there was only $27,000 raised on behalf of the caucus. Should have been a good year for raising money in Tennessee for the caucus. Speaker Sexton had a very healthy, vibrant political action leadership fund. He traveled across the state in helping to elect Republicans, holding on to Republican seats and electing Republicans to seats where individuals had retired. Majority Leader William Lamberth, again, he had a leadership pack. He contributed significantly to holding on to those 73 Republican seats in the state House. And so it was really one of those situations where there was a belief that the weakest link was the caucus chairman. I met Robin Smith in 2005 when I was the Knox County Republican Party chairman, and she was the first vice chair of the state Republican Party. Bob Davis was the chairman of the state party. I was the Knox County Republican Party chairman. When Bob Davis stepped down as the state Republican Party chairman, Robin Smith became the chairman. It was during those years that Bob Davis was chair and Robin Smith was first vice chair, and then Robin was chair, that the party became, that the state legislature went from Democrat control to a slim Republican majority, and then while Robin was chair, it continued to grow, and now we have a supermajority in the state of Tennessee, and so the real issue is that there are many people who laid the groundwork for the supermajority, who have worked in the trenches and really did the necessary work to build the supermajority that is today. And you got a lot of folks who have gotten elected to the legislature in recent years that doesn't understand the fight and the struggle that it took to build a majority and a supermajority in the state of Tennessee. And so that's really what the issue was. It was an election that was a closed ballot, so we don't know for sure what those numbers are, but I'm sure that those numbers will come to light eventually. So Robin Smith goes on. She's chair of an insurance committee in the State House. She'll continue to be a leader. Faison will continue to be the caucus chair. And it's just one of those situations that the Nashville paper, the Tennessean, pointed out that the only female in leadership in the State Republican Caucus in the House is the secretary position. And that went actually to a Knoxvillian. Michelle Carringer, former vice chair of the Knox County Commission, will start her first session as a member of the Tennessee House, replacing Bill Dunn. And she's now the secretary of the Tennessee House GOP Caucus. And also on the Senate side, on the Tennessee GOP Caucus on the Senate side, they also have a female as secretary, but all the other positions are held by males. The reporter for the Tennessean has tried to make a gender connection to that. I don't know that that's necessarily true because I don't know all the members. I don't know all the new members of both the House and the Senate caucus. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. I have confidence in both Speaker Sexton and Majority Leader William Lamberth, and I think the House GOP caucus is going to be in fine shape. At this point, I do want to remind you of Matlock Tire Service, located in Farragut, Hardin Valley, Lenoir City, Maryville, and Athens. For all your car and transportation needs, whether it be changing your oil, whether it needs new brakes, whether it needs new tires, whatever your needs are, Matlock Tire Service is a family-owned business, now on its third generation. Jimmy Matlock, former member of the Tennessee House of Representatives, currently leading that company that his father started, and now his son Joe is in that business, and they have multiple locations in East Tennessee. So you need to go see Matlock Tire Service for all your transportation needs. MatlockTireService.com. All right. Again, as a reminder, Brian Hornback podcast can be heard on Anchor FM, Spotify, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Google Podcast, Breaker, and of course Apple, and of course YouTube. So check us out there. Wherever you're listening, give us a like, give us a share. Tell your friends that you need to be listening to the Brian Hornback podcast. Another thing, while we're talking about the Tennessee State House, it was really interesting, as you may or may not know, on brianhornback.com, I go through every time that campaign financial disclosures are due. I go through and report on brianhornback.com who's raised money, how much money they've raised, if there's any notable contributors or any notable expenditures, that type of thing, especially during election years and election season. And so, an interesting note is that when you look at State Representative Jason Zachary, he's chairman of the Rules Committee in the Tennessee House, was last year. I would assume that he'll still be chairman of the Rules Committee this coming year. On December 6th of 2019, he received a $1,000 contribution from Tim Burchett, the congressman here in the Knoxville area, here in Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District. Then he turns around, and on August 11th of 2020, according to these are all taken from Jason Zachary's campaign financial disclosures. On August 11th, he then gave $1,000 back to Burchett for Congress. I just find that interesting. You've got folks, Tim Burchett was in the House, then he went to the Senate, then he became mayor, now he's in Congress. But you got a couple of folks here who basically are swapping money. You got Tim Burchett giving $1,000 in December of 19, and then in August of 2020, just 8 months later, you've got Jason Zachary giving that $1,000 back to the Burchett for Congress campaign. And of course, Jason Zachary's no stranger to controversy. Last year, when he ran for Congress in 2015 for a special to finish the term of Ryan Haynes, he ran against a a school board member and was very pro-voucher, pro-choice for education. And when it came up for a vote on the ESA, the Educational Savings Account vouchers that Governor Lee wanted to pass last year, when they went into that 45-minute break where they didn't declare, they were deadlocked. Jason Zachary was a no vote. And after a 45-minute delay, and Jason Zachary going out on the porch, actually it's a balcony, but he comes back in and changes his vote to a yes. He has his explanation for it. Whether his explanation's accurate, that's for others to decide. But from the initial reports last year, that vote and the actions going into that vote, and particularly conversations that State Representative John Mark Wendell describes about the conversations on the porch, lends folks to believe, and I've been told that there are authorities looking into the actions of those votes. There was a controversy with Representative Zachary, and now Representative Zachary has been the one that has been named by Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs as having been the one that authored and wrote a video that Glenn Jacobs says was never supposed to be public about the Knox County Health Board. It's just interesting when you start sitting down and looking at information and you see $1,000 being exchanged back and forth. People that gave money to Congressman Burchett, did they intend for that $1,000 to go to Representative Zachary? People that gave money to Representative Zachary, did they intend for that money to go to Congressman Burchett? That's up to their donors to decide. But those are the kind of things that ultimately I want to get into this podcast. I want those of you that listen to this podcast to start seeing what happens in politics and the connections that happen. For the last 16 years, I've done it on a weblog, and sometimes it's easy to do it on a weblog, and sometimes it's easier just to communicate it via voice and via video for those of you on YouTube. And so that's the intent here. That's what we're doing. I appreciate those of you tuning in to episode 8. I do want to encourage you to check out my friend Stokes Nielsen. He has a podcast called Stokes and Friends. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him on Apple Music or Apple Podcast. I'm sorry. But it's Stokes, Stokes, and A-N-D, Friends, Friends. Stokes and Friends on any of your podcast streaming services and on YouTube. And check him out. He's from over Middle Tennessee. He's a former, he is a songwriter and a former frontman for the Lost Trailers, and is very active in helping younger artists and developing artists get their niche. So check out Stokes and Friends. Stokes Nielsen is a great friend of mine. We've been to the Bristol Motor Speedway for a night race together. We talk on a regular basis, and he has a genuine desire to see not only music, but also get engaged in the process of helping our community and our state at some point. So check out Stokes Nielsen, Stokes and Friends. He's on Instagram. He's on all the podcast streams. He's on YouTube. Check him out, Stokes and Friends. So again, thank you all for tuning in to episode 8, and stay tuned for episode 9 in the very near future. Y'all have a great night.